Hello and welcome back. So there has been a bit of an interruption with my upload schedule purely because we're still in the process of moving in. Well, we've moved in, but there's still some work being done on the house. So I can't always sit down and record a video. So I'm going to try and record a couple tonight. Next week is going to be my roundup of the month. So that should be a fairly easy one to get sorted. Fingers crossed I can get back into the swing of things at some point soon. Today I'm going to be looking at some Reddit stories. I did have 4, but there's only 3 this time because the 4th one has been removed since I saved it, unfortunately. Stupidly, I didn't screenshot it, I just took the link, so it doesn't work anymore, but never mind. Knitting at work is unprofessional? So I label myself as neurodivergent and queer. I've been knitting on and off for about 13 years. Knitting for me is second nature. I don't need to look at what I'm doing or pay close attention. At my current job, I take inbound calls. I get 5-ish second notification that it's coming through. Plenty of time for me to drop what I'm doing and take the call. At the moment, there are gaps of 20 plus minutes between calls, an average of 5 minutes between calls. I'm semi-expected to just sit there and wait. There is no alternative task for me to do. I'm not allowed on my phone, which is very understandable. I can't play any form of games on my work laptop, also understandable. I'm not supposed to watch videos, but sometimes I do. It's usually video essays. I have to be in office every day, so I can't knit and work from home. When I'm allowed to, in February 2027, I might. My workload will increase as I'm trained on more things. I am allowed to colour in and read, but for me, I don't always want to read. I hate getting a call in the middle of a sentence or paragraph. I fully focus on the reading. Colouring in is far messier and I don't enjoy it. Colouring in feels more unprofessional than knitting, in my opinion. I don't get half as much joy from it. I also don't want to use fidget toys either. I own some, but there's nothing like getting into the rhythm of a repeating pattern. What I want to be able to do between calls is make something that is mindless but productive and is also something I can drop in less than a second. Most of management don't have a problem with it, but 1 or 2 of the higher ups have deemed it unprofessional. What I find unprofessional is how some co-workers can kick each other's chairs and joke on all day between calls, but I can't sit silently with my circular needles and make a shawl for myself. The co-workers I started with are in their early 20s, I'm in my late 20s. I don't really connect with them, I do with the older co-workers, but they're not in the office every day. I do not knit to sell, I'm not in anyone's way, I'm not distracting, literally no one cares that I'm doing it apart from 1 or 2 upper managers. The quality of my work at the moment is honestly really good. I'm hitting my KPIs, my QA is good, my customer feedback is excellent. I take the quality of my work very seriously. The idea of being asked to sit quietly and not move whilst I wait for someone to call is frustrating. Is there any rebuttal I can use regarding this, or shall I just take the L? I would love to sit with them and explain my reasoning, but I feel like it'll be taken for insolence and disrespect. I'm currently working on the Even Star shawl. I'm on the 3rd chart. I can't remember the yarn, I'm sorry. A petty part of me would like to bring embroidery in tomorrow. Another part of me wants to write an essay on it with citations. At least my hands will be busy. So if you've been following me for a while or you know me IRL, you'll know that I work in a law firm. And while I'm in the admin department, I'm in the admin department of basically the call centre. So what we have is very similar to this, where there's quite a lot of downtime between calls. So people like to keep busy rather than sitting there waiting. There are some other jobs that the folks in the team can do, but for the most part, people will be sitting waiting for probably about the same amount of time, if not more, depending on the day. And we encourage them to keep busy. Like, we have a little craft corner that I started with yarn and crochet hooks and knitting needles. So I've kind of encouraged people to try it rather than the managers in this instance, or some of them, who seem to be discouraging it. But yeah, it's good to keep busy between calls, because if you just stop and start scrolling on your phone, then you're not going to be productive. And if, like the OP in this story, you can just put it down and quickly answer the phone call, I don't see a problem with it. Rebuttal wise, I would probably ask one of the managers who's happy with it to help you with obtaining your data for your calls, like your call lengths, your wrap times, also your QA and your KPIs, because you may not have access to that data. They can help you gather that, and then you can present that to these upper managers, maybe even with the support of those nicer managers who are happy for you to do it, to say, look, this is my scores, or whatever verbiage you folks use over at your business, to show that you are doing a good job, and ask them in return to explain why it's unprofessional. I wouldn't even go into talking about the other people who are like kicking each other's chairs and stuff like that, because while it is annoying that it seems to be one rule for them and one rule for you, they won't care what other people are doing in that sense, I don't think. So gather that data, prove that you being able to do this is actually beneficial. Like, even sometimes taking a call, you can do some knitting while you're doing it, depending on the nature. Obviously, I don't know the nature of the business that you work in and what kind of information you're gathering or how the calls are structured. But if it's on a long phone call and there's a lot of just sort of back and forth, you're not having to note anything down or take any information, you can even be doing it then, and it might actually help you to concentrate. Like, sometimes when I'm in meetings, I will be knitting or crocheting myself because keeping my hands busy will stop me from fiddling with other stuff like a notepad or a pen or going on my phone and faffing about with it or whatever. But I would say let the data tell the story for you. Depending on the kind of managers they are, they might really appreciate being able to see how well you do this job with the knitting involved, especially if you are in a position where your customers or clients, or again, whatever verbiage you use, don't see you. It doesn't matter what they think because they don't know either way, if that makes sense. I love knitting, but I hate how my partner treats it like disposable clutter. I know this sounds small, but I need to vent because I feel ridiculous for being this upset. Knitting is my quiet self-care. I meal prep and cook to decompress, and knitting is what I do when I finally sit down and my brain needs a break from problem solving. Right now, I'm working on a simple top-down raglan in basic stockinette, a worsted weight wool blend from my stash. It's literally just a calm, steady project I pick up for 20 minutes when I have a moment. My partner keeps treating my whip like trash that needs to be cleared away. If I leave it on the couch arm with my needles in, he will scoop it up and drop it into a random bag, shove it under a pillow, or set it on the kitchen counter next to whatever he's doing. Then I go to knit and my working yarn has been pulled through the stitches, my stitch markers are missing, and I have to spend my limited downtime untangling things and checking if I accidentally increased somewhere. I've asked nicely so many times, please do not move it, or if you must, put it in the project bag right next to it. He says I'm being picky and the living room should not look like a craft store. I do not even spread out, no piles, one project, one bag, yet somehow the presence of knitting seems to annoy him. How do you handle sharing space with someone who doesn't respect your whip? I'm trying to stay kind, but I'm tired of feeling like my hobby is an inconvenience that needs to be hidden. I know this sounds small, but I need to vent because I feel ridiculous for being this upset. Knitting is my quiet self-care. Looks like they've copied and pasted it a little bit. This is a bit of an awkward one because ultimately you shouldn't feel like an inconvenience in your own home, especially when you're not taking up much room. Like you said in the post, you've got one project, one bag, and that's it. It's not like you've got a living room full of stuff. I've been quite lucky in that when we lived in a house where I had to keep all my craft stuff in the living room, my wife wasn't too opposed to me having it in the living room. Ultimately, it would have been better if it wasn't in the living room and it was in a separate space because I do collect a lot of things, yarn, notions, various bits and bobs, but we were able to fit all of the stuff in the living room, so it wasn't too bad. But anyway, I appreciate how it feels to you when stuff isn't treated with respect. If it's left in such a way that it's easy for all the stitches and things to drop off, you might consider meeting him halfway and having stoppers on the end of your needles so that your work doesn't fall off. Maybe make sure that you put it in the project bag and tie it up so that if he does need to move it, then it's all put together. Or ask him to not touch it. If it needs moving and he wants it putting away, to ask you to move it so that you can move it in such a way that it is keeping the integrity of the project. The malicious part of me might try and find a way to mess with his interests and hobbies. You've not said in this if he has any hobbies or interests, but I might mess with stuff like my other half is an avid gamer. I'm not going to mess with her, but if I was going to mess with her, I might mess with the settings on her PC if she's left it unlocked, or do that thing where you take a screenshot of the screen and then make that the background and hide all the apps so that nothing works, or turn everything upside down. Do something to mess with something of his so he understands how disrespectful it feels. Or the ultimate thing, tell him if he touches it again, you'll leave him. Because it is that important. Sometimes when you're making stuff, if you've put a lot of time and effort into it, having to go back and fix it because someone else has not respected the item is a big thing. It might not seem like it, but it can be. that is obviously very much scorched earth sort of situation. Maybe sit down with him and speak to him about why he feels like it's untidy and why it shouldn't be out, especially as, since you say it's a very small amount of stuff. Like, I've got so much more stuff in this living room that's to do with knitting and crochet than you do. Like, I've got a rolling cart with like 3 levels full of stuff, and I've got stuff on some shelves, and also a finished project just sitting on the sofa because I haven't taken a photo of it yet. But my other half doesn't move the stuff without asking. If she wants it to be tidied away, she'll ask me, because she knows it's important to not mess with stuff, because I have a system. I know where things are, or you know, things might fall off needles. She appreciates that. So it might just be a case of opening those lines of communication and seeing why he feels that way, and being very clear with how it makes you feel. Am I the asshole for rejecting my mother-in-law's challenge and giving her instructions to learn how to knit? I'm a knitter and I enjoy making all kinds of things, but for the most part I knit things for me and my husband. I don't have the heart to buy nice yarn, a pattern, and put hours into making something for someone just to watch it be treated like crap. I have no say over what others do with the things I give them, so I just don't. My mother-in-law says, I have a challenge for you, if you're up for it. She pointed at a picture on her phone and said that the challenge was for me to make her a Sophie scarf that would match a dress. I asked her, why is she framing it as a challenge when it's just her asking me to knit something for her? She didn't have an answer and just said if I'm up for the challenge, I can give it a try. I asked my husband what I should do. He said to just flat out tell her no, but I figured it would be nice to at least meet her halfway. I asked her to send me a picture of the dress and went to my yarn store to get the yarn in a colour I thought would be good and a pair of needles from my own stash. I got her a Learn to Knit book. The next time I saw her, I gave it all to her and said here is all the stuff she would need to make her Sophie scarf, except the pattern that she'd need to buy herself. She looked at it like, what the heck, and said in this pitty voice, oh, you couldn't figure it out? I said, nope, I've made myself a few, but I thought it would be better for her to learn how to knit and she would be able to challenge herself. She frowned at it but didn't say anything else to me and just set the yarn aside. She did, however, go to my husband and tell him that all she had done was give me a challenge, but I hadn't even tried. He heard her out, but told her it was ultimately up to me. I've unfortunately seen her posting on Facebook about how she doesn't get my generation and why we have to make everything so difficult. I thought this would be an interesting question to pose you all. So, am I the asshole? I think a little bit you're the asshole, because you could have just said no. You didn't have to go to the trouble of buying the yarn, getting the knitting needles, and a how to knit book. You could have just said, no, I only like making things for myself and my husband. Or you could have said yes and made the scarf for her. I'm the kind of person that, I mean, like you said, you have no say over what others do with the things that you give them, so you just don't. And I agree with that. So if someone asks me to make something, then I will, rather than not making it, if that makes sense. I don't think you're the asshole. I think you are maybe mildly an asshole. Like you're a bum crack rather than an asshole, if that makes sense. You could have just said no, or you could have just said yes. You didn't have to be mean about it. I think she also could have asked you in a much nicer way. She could have said, I've seen the things you've made. I liked them. Can you make one for me, please? I think maybe you're both a little bit tiny asshole, and maybe you need to learn to communicate with your mother-in-law a bit better. I know that sometimes the relationships with mothers-in-law can be difficult, but they don't have to be. You can try and make things rub along a bit better. You're not the asshole for rejecting it, but you are the asshole for the way you rejected it, if that makes sense. Let me know what your thoughts were on these stories, if you agree with me or disagree, or if you had any other perspectives that I've not spoken about. If you would like to find me elsewhere, the link to my Linktree is in the doobly-doo below, and I'll see you next time. Do I say that? Is that how I end my videos? I can't remember. No. Bye for now.